I was at work feeling a bit rough. I had a bag left over from last night and I knew the gear was good, so I was looking forward to it.
Alright, boss. Is there any way that I can go for an early lunch?
First, I had to get the van off the boss.
Yeah, can I use the van as well? I won't be long with 10 minutes, yeah? Oh, nice one, boss, yeah. Yeah.
Make it quick.
Yeah, alright, keep your head on.
Bring me some chips back and no salt.
I had a favourite spot where I liked to go, so I could enjoy my gear and I could relax after it. I got the gear ready like I normally do, put a bit extra in, you know, I wanted to make sure it did the job. I knew straight away that I'd overdone it. The rush was overwhelming. My body just collapsed inside me. Just didn't know what to do. I was isolated. There was no one to help me. There was no one around. No one to phone an ambulance. I just felt so powerless. I knew it was over for me then.
During 2009, there were 132 drug-related deaths in Wales.
Well, I've actually been over once, and it's very scary. When you hit it up, you don't know what's going on, and you just wake up, and if you're lucky, the paramedics are there, and they give you adrenaline. You wake up, and you just don't know where you are, and you just need another hit, and it's horrible.
Well, I was with a couple of friends, so-called friends. You know, we were in a house. We were all smoking, taking heroin and that. You know, I went into the toilet, got my injection, pulled up 20 mil. That's all it took, and then I OD'd in the bathroom. You know, and they didn't realise. They just thought I was couching there for a while, and then I started having convulsions. And then somebody heard my head banging on the door. They came in and checked on me and realised that I went over. And that's when they panicked and phoned the ambulance and that.
I'd just come back from the club. I was totally off my rocker. I needed something to come down on. My heart was going 10 to the dozen. Seth had his last joint, but he weren't going to share it with me. He did offer me something stronger though. Something I'd never taken before. Heroin. I was scared. I didn't know the feeling. And then it hit me. I felt motionless. I felt as though I was in a bubble. I wish I'd listened to Matt. He told me not to touch it. I could hear panicking. Seth was arguing with Matt on whether to call the ambulance or not. Seth was scared the police would come and he'd get caught with his gear in the house. In the end, they dragged me out, left me on the street and did a runner. I didn't know what had happened. I went out for a good night with my so-called mates. I didn't expect it to end like this.
My own perspective, I've been over a couple of times. The first time I'd just come out of jail. I intended to have speed, but in the end I ended up having heroin with my mate, and I went over all I knew about it was when I woke up in hospital.
You are at increased risk of overdose when released from prison or leaving detox.
He didn't want his dad to see me, and so he like ushered me out of his bedroom and down the stairs and into his garden, and it was cold. It was like dark nights, so I must have hit the cold. And next thing, from what I've been told, is that some kids were knocking his door and said, "There's somebody lying in your garden dead," so. And like I said, I woke up in hospital.
My friend went over in my house.
What happened?
He actually been drinking that day, and he came over to my house.
You are at increased risk of overdose if you use alcohol with opiates.
I told him to be careful and that, because I knew he had a few to drink and that, and he actually put 60ml in the bin of heroin and water and that, and he hit it up, and he just went over on my bed and he fell on the floor. I shouted my sister downstairs, and I told her to phone the ambulance because my mate went over, and it was scary. When he went to the ambulance, I went with him, and he would just keep on hugging me and stuff like that, saying thank you, I'm gonna go off it now and blah blah. And next day he was back in mine, wanted another one.
All I remember is getting an injection, pushing it in, standing up, and that was it. And it all went black from there.
My name is Oshan Roberts. I'm a paramedic clinical team leader for the Welsh Ambulance Service, and I have been for 21 years. Signs to look for whilst dealing with a heroin overdose are if the patient becomes pale, they become blue around the lips, they become quiet, breathing might become laboured or noisy, and it might even stop, so keep an eye on the respirations. Also they become unconscious, and the pupils quite often become really pinpoint, so if you open their eyes, check the pupils, and they're really small. It's of vital importance that if you suspect somebody in heroin overdose, that the only thing that's going to bring them round is Naloxone. So you need to be calling that ambulance. Everything else that you've heard is a myth.
Yeah, someone told me about throwing them in a cold bath, but I didn't think that would work. Like,
yeah, from chucking cold water on them, to slapping them in the face, to trying to get them walking about and that, putting them in a cold bath. There's many things I've heard over the time. Like.
I've heard loads. Put them in a cold bath, salt water.
What's the salt water one?
Give them an injection with salt water.
The only thing that's going to save this person is Naloxone. You need to phone that ambulance as soon as possible. The police will not be called unless there is violence or anything else going on. So please call the ambulance as soon as you can.
Come on. Can I get your number off him, mate? Yeah. That's all right, is it? Nice one, mate, it's all right. Come on, let's go. See you in a bit, lads. See you later.
Whatever happened to Dave?
Well, last time I seen Dave, I was in my mate's flat, yeah, and I was having a spliff. Anyway, Paul was there, gouching as usual. Joe was having a toot, and Billy's come with Dave. I'll say he just got out of prison. He'd been in 5 months. So he's had a hit. I reassured him he'd be all right, you know, because he hadn't had it for a while.
Should be all right,
So it's hard in them veins there, lads.
I know, yeah.
Oh, first time.
That's what it is now.
Nice one.
And anyway, he's gone over. So I've gone up to him, I've shook him and slapped him, you know, as you do. But there was no response. So I've asked for an ambulance to be called, but Billy was having none of it. He says because he was scared that the police were going to get involved. I had to literally grab Paul, drag him from the chair, take him, you know, get out of there. So we'd done one. So I haven't seen him since.
So no one knows what happened to Dave?
No.
You need to get your casualty in the recovery position, and what this does is maintains the airway. Now to do that quickly, the casualty's lying on his back, you put one arm up towards you, lift the casualty's knee, because you're going to be using that as a lever, take the casualty's hand to the side of the face, protect the head, and using the knee, roll him over and make sure the airway's open. Cover him with a blanket and keep him nice and warm. Then you can go and phone for the ambulance.
In Wales, Naloxone is made available to opiate users for use in overdose situations This is how it's used.
So what you might find in a typical kit is a sterile syringe, a sterile hypodermic needle, the drug itself, and maybe an alcohol wipe to clean the skin. It's really easy to prepare this drug. All you need to do is break open the syringe, break open the needle. What you need to make sure of is that the little dot on the ampule is pointing away from you before you actually snap the top off. Insert the needle carefully. Withdraw the drug. Make sure all the air's out of it. And that is now ready to inject into the thigh or into the upper arm. If you can, get down to skin, but in an emergency, it's fine to go through clothes, making sure there's no wallets or keys or anything in the way. What you must remember is that this is a fraction of the dose that we can give. Just because you've given this doesn't mean they're going to be alright, you still need to phone the ambulance.
I have had people tell me not to give them the injection or CPR. So that's a bit of a dilemma for me if they ever go over, but I would give them it. I couldn't sit there and let someone die in front of me, and I would phone the ambulance whether the police came or not. As long as that person's not going to die on me, I'm not bothered.
Me, Bobby and Sue were only in town to get something to eat. Sue went to the toilet, we didn't think nothing of it at the time. We started to get a bit worried though because of the length of time that had passed.
Yeah, Sue! Sue! Sue!
When I couldn't get no response at the toilet door, I started to panic.
Oh, I've phoned an ambulance, Billy. Fucking hell, something's up. Gone over or something.
Sue!
Hello, can I have an ambulance, please?
When I found Sue on the floor, it was really scary because I could see she'd overdosed. I put her on her side because there was no room to put her in the recovery position at the time. With being an ex-user myself, I was carrying Naloxone.
Yeah, she's shallow breathing.
Oh, fucking hell, Nellin. Oh.
Yeah, how long? They're sending the ambulance now. They won't be long.
I wouldn't like to think what would have happened if I wasn't carrying Naloxone. I knew this was only going to buy us a bit of time, but at least I had it.
I don't know, miss.
It was just a matter of waiting for the ambulance then.
Sue! Still breathing like?
If I wasn't carrying Naloxone, Sue might not be here now.
Sue, can you hear me? Sue!
In an overdose situation, think Cara. Call an ambulance. Airway, head tilt, chin lift. Recovery position if breathing. If not, begin basic life support. Administer Naloxone. If you are an opiate user, contact your local drug agency about getting take-home Naloxone.